Shona, you ready?
Yeah.
This is your big show. It's your day.
Welcome to the very first session of Sculpt. With me is Die Hart and Zen. Do you want to do the twirl thing with the camera, Zen?
Yeah. Hi, Zen. That good-looking boy behind the camera.
He's on camera. I think he's rehearsed that grin.
I think so.
Okay. And Joe, who isn't.
Over there.
He's somewhere over there. He hides, he doesn't like the camera. So, just as a bit of an overview, this session is going to be, well, I guess an overview of sculpting as a general, and we're going to go into clay sculpting. That's what we're going to be concentrating on.
Why don't we talk about you so people understand what it is that makes you passionate about sculpting? How did you get involved?
I went to Shark Cathedral in 2006 and fell in love with the sculptures there.
Yeah.
They had like 3,000 sculptures in Shark Cathedral, and they were all anonymous. It was amazing. So I also went to Paris, of course, to see Rodin and things like that. Just absolutely loved it. I had a business. I decided to come home and sell that. I'd been 16 years at that. And so I sold it and I started...
Because of the sculpturing? Because of what you saw?
It was interesting because I was 44 and I thought, it was a bit like being asked to be a ballerina at 44 because I had no... Well, exactly. I had no idea what I was doing. But I thought, oh look, I'm just going to give it a shot.
Right.
And, you know, business was always stressful, so I just wanted a different sort of lifestyle change. And then I started learning, actually they don't have a lot of traditional sculpting in New Zealand, a lot of contemporary sculpting, which is great, it's wonderful, but I wanted to learn the traditional style. So I ended up going back to France in 2008 and I studied with Martine Vogel, who's a master sculptor. She's the only woman to have won 2 Rodin Awards. Amazing.
Mm.
Yeah. So I studied privately with her, and then came back, and then of course we couldn't get any products and stuff. But anyway, we've got that now. We do. Sculpture Moulding now carries a lot of them. So that's really how I started. And then I started teaching because I just wanted to share the passion, and I love seeing, as you know, Di, who is a colleague and a friend. But we met.
Not as very talented people.
Yes, we met.
But passionate.
We met when Di started the classes. But yeah, there's something called what I call a smile, as you know.
That moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolute moment when you know it smiles back at you.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's hard to explain that, but you know when you get it.
It's like love. Just like
it is.
Know when you get it.
Exactly.
Anyway, Shona, this is your
Let's not go into that. Okay, so we're going to cover, in this course, I think there's going to be about 5 at this stage, that's what we've planned. But we're going to follow on with lots of exciting things. We're going to have moulding classes, online casting classes, special effects. Whoops, there goes a big truck. Special effects, life casting. But during this one, at the end, we've got an exciting trip. We get to go live. Well, actually, I don't know if it's live, but we're going to go in as if it is live and film inside a foundry.
The difficulty going live would be the heat. But that would be, how exciting. We won't go quite too far.
No, exactly.
It'll be very exciting.
It will be.
I know that many people understand that actual whole process of actually how bronze is, because it's quite amazingly technical.
It is. Yeah. The amount of work that goes into a bronze, I mean, they're expensive as we know, but the amount of work that goes into creating that is huge by the foundry people. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, very.
So perhaps we start with sculpting methods. There's 3 basic sculpting methods. The first one is an additive method, which is when you add, I guess, to a sculpture, to form a sculpture, you're using adding methods. So an example would be like clay, gel. If you're doing prosthetics, you're adding. So that would be plaster, wax is another one. So that's the method we use. There's also subtractive, which is also known as, carving would go into that category. Stone, wood, anything that you're taking away in order to create your sculpt.
So we have a lot of beautiful Māori sculptors, carvers. So so that's very much a subtractive process.
It is, and it's very traditional.
Yeah. So additive, going back to the additive process, would be the likes of Rodin. Like that's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rodin, when he casts, when he does his bronzes and things, of course he's also in marble. Does amazing work in marble. In which case that's carving. So that's a subtractive. So he does both. A lot of people don't do both.
I can't imagine it would be.
No, because it's a matter of flipping your brain in a way. Of course, one of the most well known is Michelangelo. He did both. So a lot of the greats did both. Da Vinci did both. They also painted, but that was part of the lifestyle in those days. And the third one is connective. When you're bringing two things together, or bringing
like mixed media.
Mixed media, exactly.
Right,
yeah, and sometimes it can be a joining of metals or anything like that. So those are the three general type of sculpting. So we're going to concentrate on the additive, which is clay, and we're going to concentrate on clay. Some people sculpt out of wax and things like that, but for this online class we're concentrating on clay, and there's different types of clay, which is probably a good place to start. But I think most people know about water-based clay because New Zealand has a lot of potters. They have a lot of ceramic.
We all learned to do some potting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
School. That's what we did. Exactly. Yeah. And you remember the
turntables.
Yeah. No, the coiling and things like that. So that's right. That's what's taught mostly in schools. And there's lots of wonderful ceramic art around and sculptures. That's fired though in a kiln, so it's a completely different process. And there's some fantastic pottery studios and stuff around. Auckland Potters is a great one in Auckland, and they're all over the place. But for our purposes, we're not going to focus on ceramic. We're going to still focus on one of the mediums being a water-based clay. So I suppose I'm just thinking the best way probably is to go through the process of sculpting. So you start with your sculpture, and here's an example. Yeah.
A pier with stairs.
Yeah, pier to heaven. Fantastic. So this actually is made out of monster clay, isn't it, Di?
Which is different again. But we did start with an oil-based clay.
Yes.
We actually sculpted an oil-based clay to begin with, and then we moulded it, and then we cast it in monster clay. So this is the next process. I'll take it.
Okay.
The next
so
process.
Once you've got your original sculpt, you then box it up, and we'll go further into this at the moulding, in the moulding seminar, I guess, later. But this is the silicone is plastic, is liquid, sorry, and poor Zen's got a cough.
We heard.
I know, poor guy. Sorry, Zen. It's good he came to do it anyway. So this is usually liquid, and you pour it in, and you get the negative. So that's quite a process, isn't it?
It's quite a process to understand. For me, it was like, why and how did that work? But Then you see the next process, and it just shows you what unlimited opportunities there are once you've cast a mould of the piece you create.
Exactly right. And once you get it, it takes a bit to get it, but once you get it, it's the world's your oyster.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So that's a silicon mould. That's just a cut piece mould. I don't want to get too technical. And then, of course,
we decided this time
to
cast
that was lucky.
Cast this is the same mould, this is the mould that created this product here, or this piece here, which has been, if you look on the light, I'm going to zoom on that, it's been cast in polyoptic, and it creates beautiful colours. It's a really hard product, but it just, it looks like glass, it feels like something else.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it does have, which is not a usual thing to do. We didn't set out to be, but we were playing, so it was the great fun in playing with the different products.
Exactly, so much fun.
Yeah.
And then you did this one, I think,
Yeah, I did, which is, saying again, quite an unusual thing to do as opposed to. But Shona was really demonstrating to me, showing me that you can actually, the opportunities to create something from something are limitless, unlimited. Yeah. And once you get going, I just thought it's such a beautiful piece. I love learning about the, the different finishes.
Yeah. I love that finish you've got on there. I really love it.
Yeah. So that's what from that became that.
And then you this is made of monster clay. There's another piece here. I don't know if you can see that, Zen. I sculpted that originally out of water-based clay, but this monster clay melts, so you can completely melt it and then pour it into your mould, so you get, if you like, another copy that you can change.
So that's what you did. Yes, I did.
So I started with the original, poured it into a mould, and then she's changed the stairs. So it meant you didn't have to do another whole sculpt.
Right, yeah. You can we fix some mistakes.
Yes. No, you don't make such thing as mistakes.
No such thing as mistakes.
All lead to something else.
So why would somebody use monster clay? Why would you encourage somebody to use monster clay as opposed to a water-based clay?
I would encourage monster clay if you wanted to pour it, because you melt it. Right. It's also a plastilina, so I'll go into that now, but before I do, I just wanted to show you, as we're still on that topic, another thing you can cast, see that's a bronze look. I'll just pass these over to you, Di.
And these are made originally from finishes. Yeah, these are originally made from jesmonite, or calcium jesmonite. It's like a plaster, yeah.
But it's actually a water-based resin. But you can see the amazing things. So each mould you can get about 100 pieces out at least. Depends how abrasive the product is that you're putting into a mould. And that was an easy, basic mould.
So good opportunities for some of us when we're thinking about presents for a large family.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody gets
You're good
a pear. Or a glass holder.
Yeah. It's lots of fun. I mean, it's incredibly joyful. But when we have a mould like that, we can just to explain the bronze very briefly, we get a wax out of this. So you pour wax into your mould. So you follow the same process, but you pour wax into here. And then the wax is coated in a ceramic and silica recipe. And then they burn the wax out of the negative, so they burn it out of here. Which leaves just the surround of the plaster, the silica, and then that leaves the negative. This is why we're going to go to a foundry. But what I guess I'm saying is, and there comes, then they pour, the molten metal in. So here's the bronze.
He's to be laid down. Yeah. And enjoy himself. But that's, yeah. So this is a totally different, this is the bronze piece, and this is made from, what did you cast?
I think that was winter stone.
Winter stone, so it's a heavier stone again. What you can see, this is quite light, this is quite heavy. Not as heavy as that.
Exactly, but that's been made to look like an aged bronze. So it's much cheaper, of course, so you can have a product that's available for people to buy who can't perhaps afford a bronze.
But you can create that look.
Same mould. Exactly the same mould.
Yeah, all different finishes.
Right, I'll put this down because it's quite heavy.
So talking about the different clays, we started off on monster clay. So what are the more traditional clays that you tend to use, that you like to use?
Well, for sculpting, I use one of my favourite it's called EM210, which is
a fun name.
I know, it's very technical. They don't give you easy ones like just grey or brown, but anyway. This is a water-based clay. It is extremely smooth. I don't know, you have a feel, don't you? See, it's incredibly smooth. There's no grit in it. So for smooth finishes or texture, it's superb. So this can be fired, but of course you'd have to hollow it out and things, and we're not going to concentrate on that, so we don't use it in that method at all. So that is a water-based clay. This is another water-based clay. Don't know if you can see that. This is called wed clay. Now this is a sculptural only clay. It does dry out, but it dries out much slower than your normal water-based clay.
Okay.
So it's still a water-based clay, but it's made specifically for prop companies, entertainment industry, because it gives them longer time to sculpt.
But water-based clay and the wet clay and the EM210,
yes,
both need a bit of care when you're working with them.
They do need care. So it's great because you get the finish you want, and they're really good for portraits or large sculpts.
Right.
But they need. Next week when we're going to do the water base, our first session with the water base, we'll go through the care in more detail. But they do need spritzing, they need plastic wrapped around.
That's right.
You sure don't want to use it if you're going away and it's hot summer. You'll come back and it'll be destroyed.
Yes, and we've all both had bad experiences of not having a water-based clay just drying a bit too fast.
Oh, no, you want to cry because there's nothing you can do to bring it back to life.
So it's beautiful to work with. That's what one of your favourite. Is it one of your favourites?
It is. I use all of them because it depends on the type of sculpt I'm doing. Portraits, absolutely. Although I have done portraits with oil-based, it depends on the time. So if I've got a week or a short amount of time and I can do it every day, I'd be much more likely to use a water-based. But if I have only once a week I can do some, then I'll use an oil base because you can just leave it and add to it and add to it and add to it. It doesn't ever dry out. So that's probably a good thing to talk about. The oil-based clays come in a huge variety. So that's clayette, but that's one. The lion is another in a rough used with very rough texture. That's before it's going to be bronzed. There's another one behind you, dye, which is just a starter marquette, which is a marquette is a smaller sculpt of something that you're going to do in a bigger as a bigger piece.
So you'd create a smaller marquette to get your dimensions, to get all your measurements.
Make sure the position's what you want, the flow's there, and then you can sculpt from there.
Often you can buy a marquette because it's the beginning of the process, the limited edition.
Exactly, yeah.
So this oil-based clay is quite harder to work with. So the oil-based clay
it does come in three different firmnesses.
Right.
Is that a word even?
Yes,
Firmnesses. Firmnesses?
I don't know.
Anyway. Well, it comes in
think?
3 different grades. One's soft, medium and large. Not all of them, but NSP, Chavant is probably the biggest producer in the world of oil-based clays. NSP is one of their most well-known ones. They come in different colours, but this is the brown NSP, which I think is good because it also can show light and dark. So it does come in different colours. So
the different colours, does that mean anything in terms of, does it mean one's softer or one's harder? Do they have different properties?
Basically, some sculptors prefer to do, I quite like the white one, or
Me too, right.
because it shows the dark and light a lot more.
But this is the oil-based, this is a different colour again.
It is,
darker.
yeah, that's a tan.
Yeah, we don't have a piece to
We
show
don't
another
have a
colour,
piece of
but
the tan, no. So, but that's still NSP, so it's still this, just
same
different
thing, just
colour.
different colour.
And these never dry out. So often in Italy and places like that where they do a lot of sculpting, studios will sell once someone's died or they can't sculpt anymore, they'll sell the plastilina because it just gets better with age. So
you can start with, like I've still got the plastilina that I bought when I first started sculpting.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, but quite long ago.
Exactly.
So about a year and a half ago, right?
And you don't have to cover it, which is, I just put a plastic bag on it because it saves dust from getting on it, but you don't have to do a thing with it. Really.
And the other thing with the oil-based clays is that you can get a lot of really detail.
Yeah.
Would that be one of the advantages of?
It certainly is. With the oil-based clay, you can. One of the negatives, I guess, or disadvantages, is it takes time to build up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much easier to build this. I could do this in 5 minutes. It's done. It would take much longer
to build layers.
To build layers. But you can use the soft as the initial builder, and then go into a medium or a hard for the detail. So that's really a good option. So it's great that you can do all the different grades, here we are. So here's one that's been open for ages, and it's just basically covered. And then there's the monster clay, which we talked about. And some people sculpt directly with that, they don't melt it at all. A lot of movie places use monster clay.
So everything about it is, all the clays are reusable.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's
which
true.
Is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, even water-based people do that. I don't. I don't think it's ever back to its normal. Yeah, its normal sort of consistency.
But you're a professional.
For
those
yes. I'm not a master sculptor, but hey, I'm just wanting to share my journey. So. Monster clay is really quite stretchy too, so if you're doing anything on the front, you probably can't see, but it's teeth and things like that, really good for monsters or fantasy type. Can I pass that there? And then, so that I think covers, that you use things with this, and we'll go into more detail, but when you're using oil-based, there's lots of tricks you can use. For making it easy to do detail, easy for build up, there's an enormous amount. So I'll detail those. I think we're going to do that in the 3rd session, aren't we? We're doing water-based next session. That's right.
Water-based, we are doing.
And then we'll do that in the next session. And then the last clay that we are going to go into, and there's other clays like paper clay and things, but we're not going to use those in this instance. This is a air-dried clay, and I'll just open it. I've put a wet cloth in there because it can dry really quickly, so you don't really want air. Have a feel.
It's not dissimilar to the water-based clay.
No, it isn't, but there's a sort of...
Is it lighter?
It's lighter. But it's lighter. Also, I think because it hasn't got as much water, but it's also got a PVC in it, which means it's more stretchy. It's got a different type of consistency. Much more like the water-based though than the Plastilina. Another thing too is that people, as they get older, if their hands aren't as strong, my hands are incredibly strong from all the sculpting, then they're better using a water-based clay. It's not as hard.
Easier to move.
Easier. And then there's other clays like polymers and Sculpting and things like that, but again, we're not going to really go into any depth about that.
Did you want to mention the sulphur clay? Because I think somebody had asked you about the sulphur clay.
Very good point, Di. None of these have sulphur, and that means that when it comes time to mould, which we saw with Di's pear, it's fine to mould with silicone or polyurethane or any of the methods, but if you use one with sulphur can react. So it just means that, and I've seen this, we've had a number of people who've done a beautiful sculpt and it's had sulphur in it, and the clean-up is a nightmare. In fact, you've usually ruined your piece because it won't set, the silicone won't set, and so you've got to run it.
Who would use sulphur?
Professionals really, because you can get an incredibly smooth finish with a sulphur oil-based clay. But I would stay away from it.
At this stage in our process.
Definitely at this stage anyway. I mean, even as a professional sculptor, I don't use it a lot. I have used it, I love actually the feel of it, and there is a slight smell that people don't like. So I guess from that we can go on to armatures. What is an armature? An armature is a skeleton. So it's like our bones, and we form the clay around the skeleton, just like we have flesh and muscles around ourselves. So there's various different types of armature. You can have wooden armatures. You have to be careful with wood though, because it absorbs water. So if you're using wood with water-based clay, it'll absorb the water, it'll dry quicker. This one here's got wood as the stand, it's got paper inside, so you can use that. If you're doing figurative, really the best by far, and what we use all the time, is alloy or aluminium. So there's a free-form figure. So they come like this, so you can have them seated or lying down.
So should every piece that you create have an armature?
Not necessarily every piece. I'm trying to think. For instance, your pear, I think you used, if you could bring that over, Di, you used an armature, didn't you, just for the stalk?
Stem, stalk.
But that obviously had to come through from the bottom. Lily there has got an armature on.
So it'll hold, it's like, as you said, the skeleton, it's really the skeleton of the bones to hold the clay.
Exactly right. But you brought up a good point, because with air-dried clay, you can't use armature. So here's an example. Now, if that was a normal water-based clay, I wouldn't probably use an armature for that anyway, because there's no projecting limbs, so I wouldn't necessarily need an armature. That's why I could do this in air-based clay, because it's the style of it doesn't need an armature, which means that I can then sand it. It's a finished piece. I don't have to mould that.
And that's off the air-based, but you could use the water-based. You don't have to have armature for water-based clays.
No, you don't have to. So, exactly right.
Yeah, but if you have an extension, if you want some movement, or
then don't use air dried, because what happens is if I put this inside air dried, because of it's the nature of it, it shrinks as it dries, and it shrinks around something that's hard like this, it'll crack. And so you end up with cracks everywhere. So if you want to use air dry, that's great, and we will be doing a piece, I think, in session 4. But it's really a finished piece, but no armature.
No.
So this is another one here, which is Blind Faith. And I didn't use an armature for her either. We do have some issues with slumping because there's nothing in it. You can use paper in there. Anything that will give, you know, as it dries, it will shrink, but just not too much. Yeah. Now I've lost where we are. Oh, armature.
So Shona, if I'm just thinking, you know, thinking about how...
Always a good thing.
Good, very good. Hurts sometimes. For you, what do you think are, you know, the good attributes of a great piece?
Oh, I would say a great piece would be would have flow, would have movement, tension, emotion.
So do you have some favourite pieces?
I do. Yeah. No, a bit of a cliche probably, but I just love Rodin's work.
Wow, we got to saw the kiss.
I know.
How amazing.
I don't know if that's still on.
I think it just has finished. It finished early July, late July.
Oh, what a shame. Okay. So, because I thought we could have gone in there.
But we can go to other exciting places.
We can.
Not far away.
Bernini I loved.
Yeah.
Michelangelo, of course. Italy and France, just love. Just heaven for me. It's a traditional sculptors and whether it's in marble or clay, you know, which then is of course in plaster and all sorts of things. Beautiful bronzes. So yes, those are the things I think.
They're your heroes.
Yeah.
Cool. In terms of, we talked about the attributes of a wonderful piece.
Yes.
What do you think are the things, the qualities or the attributes, the things you need to learn? What are the basics of learning? I always remember the first thing that I learned from you as a pupil was the ability to see. Yeah, I learned a lot. So it was that seeing, and I think all art teachers teach that, you know, the art of, you know, the ability to see is so crucial.
It is, and it's really understanding what you mean by seeing. I think when we're kids, we learn, don't we, that a tree looks like that. Actually, a tree, you know, we make these generic decisions at which we then implant in our head, and that whenever we then have to create a tree, we tend to follow what we did as kids without actually seeing the tree. And that's the point, I guess, is we need to actually see through our eyes, not through our mind. And mostly we see through our mind. So it's learning again.
Learning to see.
Learning to see.
And also about planes. I think you talked a little about planes. For me, it was a thing that finally connected one day in one class about angles. And I thought, geometry. Exactly. It actually, you know, I didn't do very well, but I got a little bit of it.
Yeah, exactly right. And we'll go into that too as part of the techniques. But if for instance, if you're talking about a human, a portrait, a portrait has three basic planes: a frontal plane, a diagonal plane, and a side plane. And if you're starting a piece, it's a great idea to keep going back to those planes. So, for instance, you know, the nose is in the frontal plane. So if the nose is slightly to the side, you know it's in the wrong place. So you've got basic structures of faces. And there are different methods for doing this. So with Martine, I learned to go back to the skeleton and then add on the muscles and the flesh. But if you're in the movie industry or prop industry or anything like that, you've got to move at an incredible rate. They don't have time to do that sort of thing. So they use a method. A lot of them use Philip Farrow's method.
Philip Farrow is a famous...
He's an incredible sculptor. Actually came from a background of making dolls, believe it or not.
And you can see that influence in some
You
of
can.
his work.
It's quite perfect. But he teaches a really quick way of building up, which we'll also go into as the classes progress. So you've got different methods, but the best thing that anyone can do is basically, once they've listened and found out about a few of them, is find their own.
Find their own style.
Find their own style, and that's where you're at, isn't it?
Yeah. Find your own style, exactly. And
well, you're creating what
you talked about planes, and you talk about measuring as well.
Yes.
Having the ability to see and measure.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Da Vinci, wasn't it Da Vinci? He was a mathematician.
Yes,
so
he was exactly right.
But you don't have to be a mathematician.
No.
Do you have to
we use stable data points, we use geometric shapes and planes, and from there we always have points we can go back to make sure we're staying in line for the sculpt. So yeah, there's a lot of information and it can seem a bit overwhelming, but if you follow us with the sculpts, you'll get the same information, perhaps in different ways with every sculpt.
Do you think you need to be able to have drawing skills to be a good sculptor?
I'd love to be able to.
So you don't need to at all, do you?
No, you don't. In fact, for me, I decided a couple of months ago to go and keep learning and try drawing. And in drawing, you have to foreshorten and do all this sort of thing, because it's 2D. In a way, it hampered my sculpting, because I was always trying to perceive what it was. Whereas in sculpting, you have measurements, you have the exact proportions and things like that. In drawing and painting, you don't. It's all perception.
No, because I think a lot of people still believe that they're not creative, that they don't have any creativity. But the thing that I've learned from and that you've taught me is that sculpture is about feeling. It's about how it makes you feel to do something and what comes back to you when you are working on it. And you do that in the pieces that you've created.
That's what I love, is people getting that smile. People expressing themselves creatively in something so tactile. It excites me. It's a wonderful, wonderful medium. And even if it's just for you to do at home. I used to play the guitar, but only for me to write songs. I wasn't a professional guitar player by any means, but it's just one of those outlets. And it's, it
gives you joy, makes you smile, makes you happy.
Exactly. Yeah. No mistakes, no dumb questions.
No, never. Well, hardly ever.
No. Yeah, actually, no, I wasn't talking about you. No. So, back to the
armatures. Yes, we did digress.
Yes, as always. So that's a free flow one, and then you've got in the background here. This is the one that I would recommend, which is a free flowing one. You attach it to your own board. And it moves, if you hold that bottom there, we get these from America, but this moves up and down.
And so what you would attach.
So you can use it over and over and over again. You need a bit of silicone on here sometimes.
So when would you recommend that you have one of these? As
soon as you want to do a stand-up figure, like this one, or seated. Because it needs to hold. If I'm doing like a lily, it doesn't need to stay up. So as soon as you want a figure that's a standing figure, or you want to do a portrait, there's a portrait stand here in the aluminium.
You just zoom on that. I think I'm
use that.
Zen, the big head.
You just use that again and again, and it's got a bust, so you can do the shoulders on that. That's another stand-up one. Those come with the armatures, but I actually think these are, better myself because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
And you can make your own armature.
So we're going to make our own armature next week.
Next week. So, the last one over there, Zen, if you can have a little look, there's an animal armature over there. So that's used for horses, dogs, everything like that. It's proportioned.
Can you see this one there? The limbs, the leaves. Did you make that, Shona? Or
no, that comes like that too. Okay. And actually, for that one, the base moves, so you could have, for instance, a horse rearing, because the metal bit moves, so you can alter it. So,
just a minute.
You what? Armatures can be made out of paper, as we said, tin foil, anything like that. We use aluminium because it doesn't stain. So if you're doing a water-based, it doesn't rust, which can also affect your moulding, and as well as seeing. Yeah. You know, if you've got multiple colours, it affects how you see it. So we're going to learn how to use aluminium.
So in the pack, in the starters pack that that you've posted on Facebook, is two types of types of armature. I couldn't think of the name. My brain is empty. Sorry.
If you hold that, I will show you. So in the kit we have, this is armature wire. It's a wrapping wire.
So that's what's been wrapped around.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So we do that because it helps the clay to stick. Otherwise, you imagine you've just got a piece that's just
going to slide off as we learn.
And you don't want air stuck in it either. And that is the armature wire, which is for your main piece. That goes all the way up to life-size armature.
Wow, that's huge.
So if you're doing a life-size piece, you'd use that piece there. And there's another few in between. So you get, I'll put that over there. So in the kit we have both of those. We have weed clay, because I'm pretty sure most people, even if it was at school, would have used a water-based. But if you do want water-based, the EM210 is brilliant. So this is weed clay. I think that's £5 in.
Yep.
£5 weed clay, which is the sculptor's only clay. You can never fire it. You get a £2.5 of
the size. Is
no, that's of the air dried clay. Now it's in red because I want people to actually see what the difference is. What do they prefer working with? Some people like darker, some people like lighter.
Cool.
So that's air dried, which will make a piece like that, which isn't something similar to that.
Finished piece.
Finished piece. And you'll have one medium clayette, which is your oil-based clay. And there you've got 3 different colours, so it's going to help aid. You'll find out what, not just the medium that you like working in, but the colour you like working in.
And a clay cutter? Clay cutter. We call it clay cutter?
I don't think I put that in because Zen said, you can just use a guitar chord.
Because there is a guitar chord in our house.
But if you don't have for those who don't have a guitar, or you want to keep the strings on the guitar, you can get one of those.
Yeah.
That's actually, we didn't put that in the kit for that reason. But we also did put in pallets. I can't see them. There's 2 blue steel pallets. I probably can't
These are tools. These are the tools. So should we talk about the tools? Or
sure.
I think this is part of the pack as well.
Yep.
And everybody will be able to see on the Facebook posting what what's on in the beginner's starters pack. But I think it's great to have a look at some of these tools, because I think the tools are an exciting part.
They are.
Sculpting.
And these are
just our fingers.
This would not even be 5%. So there's an enormous amount of options, but
take away that clay so we can.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Sorry.
But you don't need to go this way. I mean, we've put together a basic kit, which is going to give you just the basic tools you need. That'll give you a great sculpt for all the mediums. But in the meantime, these are resins. Just a little bit of background. These are made of plastic, if you like. They're particularly good, they come as a kit of 5, particularly good for different things. As an example would be, although this isn't the right one, creating, I've got my hands full, creating a mouth, or wherever you need a really thin line. You obviously don't want a big line with your lips, and you use a flicking motion. Obviously I haven't put actually the bulk of the lips on here, but you use a flicking motion. And the good thing about this is it's so thin
So pliable.
Yeah, so
Very
pliable that it almost turns into like spaghetti. But there are some other ones on the market. Please be careful because they're not thin enough. You won't be able to use them. We did have one.
Are these expensive or are these quite?
No, they're really inexpensive.
Really good. I've still got all.
I think it's $14.95 or something like that for 5. Yeah. Then we have the wooden knife, which is brilliant. We use it all the time because we use it as a measuring tool as well for clock, for all sorts of things. So, you know, a lot of people might already have. We draw on our sculptures all the time.
We remove clay. Yeah. We take a piece from the
the
brick.
It's cheap. Yeah. But make sure it's a sealed one because when you're using water-based clay, you don't want it waterlogged. We have your wired loop tools, and these are great. I think I've got one I'm already using over there. Oh, you can die. Yes. So you can use it around the, and here's an even bigger one.
You like using this, don't you?
I love it. I always use this on every sculpt, every water-based sculpt. And the reason is that I can see where the planes are. I can see, because the light and the shadow creates movement, but visually I can see what needs to change. Whereas when it's all like that, the light shines off it and glows and things like that. Love this tool. That's a big one, and you use it it's quite a delicate thing, and you always use it where the muscle, wherever the muscles are from, if you like. You use it in that same way.
And you've taught me how to use without the wire. I can't find one here. One,
here.
2, and it's when we remove.
Yes,
remove them. It's
exactly
a great
right.
way to actually start the sculpting process.
Yeah.
And they come in right down to tiny foot.
They do.
They're tiny, so when you need to work in a really difficult area to get out, they're beautiful tools too.
Absolutely. This one here actually is one we recommend
use
because it's cheaper. It's not necessarily cheaper, but it's a really good. You use it. It's a palette on one side, which is great, and it's got a slight curve so you can get in. It's also got a steel, so great for nostrils or anything like that. We also have stainless steel tools.
Stainless steel. Now they are at the higher end. They are the present that you want for Christmas.
Exactly. They're stainless steel. They don't rust, obviously. They can be used for every clay. Most of these can be used for all types of clay. You do have to be careful with these, with the harder clays in clayette or in the oil-based clay. The wooden tools are fine, but these you can use in everything. The other benefit for these are that you can heat them, and then with the oil-based clay it actually, or wax, it melts so you can get better detail. That's my favourite of all. We've put that one, I think, on the Facebook page just as an example. Did you get to see that, Zen?
There we go.
My favourite tool. Spatula on one hand, really flexible.
Because even though the stainless steel, they are really, they bend.
Yeah. And great for doing any work like here or anything that you want to have a texture. Brilliant.
Specialist tools.
Yes, there's a couple. These are by Chavant, and they're brilliant glip tools. And they come with different ends.
So you buy the ends, like instead of buying the whole tool.
Yeah, you buy the ends to go.
So you'd buy that end for it, or you'd buy that end for it.
Come bigger ends, smaller ends. It's really good. It's stainless. Well, it's painted steel.
So it's really light.
It's light, but it's not going to rust. So. And then you have specialist tools like this one, which is Philip Farrow. This is his eye tool, which is just fantastic. So we use that, and obviously when we're doing a portrait or something, we do it. But it's really great for forming eyeballs. specialised. The other thing to remember is to use 2 hands. If you can, use both hands. Get into that mode already.
I don't know that you demonstrated it because part of the pack has the
yes,
blades, there's one over there.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be good if you just show what the purpose of they are as well.
Sure. This is, perhaps I'll show you on this head here, this is a blending palette. It's really nice and bendable. This is blue steel, and it just blends, so it makes sure everything's right. So if I'm doing a portrait, I do this to make sure that the planes are correct first. And again, a bit similar to this in that, you know, it shows
to use. Yeah.
This is quicker and for bigger pieces. Yeah, definitely. And this other one, which is just without the serrate, is basically really good. Once you've done that, you can smooth areas off. It's lovely.
So when I first looked
Those
at
are in the kit, yes.
when I first looked at the tools that are your toolkit,
Yes.
I thought I'd gone to the dentist, the dental nurse, with all the tiny little...
Exactly, far more enjoyable though.
Far more enjoyable, but it's just like amazing how many different types of tools there are.
It is
unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is.
And they can all, so every one of these has a use for the different types of product, types of clay product that you're using.
Exactly.
And also for maybe the different piece that you're creating.
Yes, and as you get to know your own style, some people I know only use palette because they like the rough look. So as you get to know your own style, you'll get your own favourites.
So using their own tool, is there such a thing as a perfect piece?
Never. I still have not. Well, perhaps the only one that could claim that is probably Michelangelo or even Rodin, but I don't know that they would say that because I don't think, there's never been a piece that I've gone, yep, perfect, that's great. I always see the flaws. And that's actually what Martine advised us, recommended we did, is go and look at other sculptures and critique it and say, oh actually, and it's not about putting someone down but it is about learning to see, and you go, oh yes, I might have done that differently, or I've noticed his head's bigger than...
Because that
was part of our
learning process, because I've noticed as well that you actually do learn from other people, watching how other people work.
Exactly.
You learn from them as well.
And seeing what you would have done differently, or you can advise each other. So actually, one of the things that people are starting to do too is get together in their own houses or in their area, watch the sessions.
We heard about the people who are going to be sitting beside their laptop. They would have been here dropping it onto their new TV screen.
Yeah, something like that. With a glass of wine, probably.
Absolutely.
But
sipping and sculpting.
Exactly.
Next time's in.
As long as it's not skull and sculpt, they'll be all right. But
some people would be.
I suppose it's a great idea, and we'd encourage that. The more you can do it with sculpting. Yeah, both of those. But with a group, you're getting to see someone else's sculpt. You're just learning all the time, and it's not about judgment. It is about discernment. So that's probably the difference. So I think that's probably pretty much rounded up.
And giveaways.
Yes. We will be, for people who, thanks Zen, for people who are going to be watching live, and I know not all of you can, and luckily we will post this for a week afterwards, so stay in touch, keep it going, stay watching. There's a couple of things. We want photographs of your sculpts. If you want to share, we'd love that. We want you involved as much as possible. We want this to be interactive. And we're going to give a couple of tools away every week to people who are watching. And so it might be, I don't know, we'll see. We'll just wait and see. Might be
this fabulous tool.
Yeah. We'll see who will choose. It might be the best question or something. Who knows? We'll make something up, something fun. So the kit, the other things, so next week, I think we need to talk about that. It's a bit longer than we thought, but hey, that happens. So next week we're going to do our water-based sculpt. I've chosen for my one this piece here. I chose this because for what I'm going to teach, it's actually quite a good piece. It's got a lovely flow, so you're going to be using different techniques for the smoothness of the back here. It's got enough detail, so we're going to use that. You can follow and do that. You could find another object, but what I don't want is, Di and I were talking about this before, so that's why I'm laughing. I don't want people to go off a picture or a photo. Any 3D object, as long as, this is about
carrot, an apple, a pear, a banana.
It's basically so you can follow along.
And learn some techniques.
Yeah, and learn some techniques. And
or could be a cat.
Could be a cat. Dog, as long as it's an object, a 3D object.
Go to the $2 shop and buy something
exactly.
that you can't find.
Good point.
A flower.
That's a very good place to find them. So it's going to be out of water-based clay. So what you are going to need is, if you can have a look at the here's end, we've got spritzer bottle, find it, Bunnings, anywhere filled with water, you'll need it.
Window cleaner, an old window cleaner bottle cleaned out.
Yeah, that's interesting. As long as it's cleaned out really well.
Yeah, very well.
You'll probably have a pair of pliers at your house. Long nose pliers are good with a cutting, so it can cut the armature. We have just a paintbrush, just a cheapish paintbrush.
And what's that for?
That's for, we are going to show a technique of making your sculpture smooth. We have a sponge, which can be a makeup sponge, or makeup sponges are quite good actually, and you can get those chemist, of course, or supermarket. Plastic drop sheet, we use this rather than Glad Wrap because it won't cling. You can also use shopping bags and things like that.
Because it will make the water and the clay make a mess on your hands everywhere. So you do need to be prepared. So you don't have, would you put, you wouldn't put a sheet down though, would you?
Some people will, some people can.
An old cotton sheet.
But I would wrap this with the plastic.
Two purposes to
it
go
is,
with
exactly.
the plastic rather than the sheet.
But it does get a bit messy.
Yeah.
And a board, hopefully a laminated board.
So things don't stick.
Exactly, so things don't stick. And it doesn't get waterlogged.
You can just go down to the...
Yeah, or look, I mean, for the purpose of practice, you might find a bit of board in the garage or something, and just use that. It just won't last as long if it's not laminated. That's
and just means that you can keep, everything can be kept on on it, like your own little tray, it's your work tray. So it just makes it easier to move everything off there, back there.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I do at home. I've got a little table, everything goes there. So those are the things you'll have lying around, and then as far as the kit we've put together, I think the 3 clays, which will be for the next 3.5, 4 sessions. The wire armature, the wrapping wire and the other armature wire. Someone did ask if they could just get that as a kit because they've got tools, because they've done ceramics before. Absolutely, no problem. Could we stick that up, Zen, as one kit? So that'll be on shortly. The kit we've got up is the essential beginners kit dye. We've got that plus the 5 of the resin, a knife, the 2 pallets, and that's really the basic tools. I mean, look, to be honest, if you can't afford anything, we still want you to be here with us. We want you to carry this journey and use a knife from your kitchen. Not as good, but hey, if you'll learn. Yeah. And as Joe said, if you dig deep enough, you'll probably find some clay in your backyard. Now, I'm not quite sure about what sort of clay that would be, but yeah, we want you along. So, or even if you're not going to follow us, but you're just wanting to learn, it's great to have you with us. So then there's that kit there. There's also recommendations which we've gone through here. We've put those online as well.
We didn't do these, but that's okay.
Calipers. I wouldn't get those yet. Yeah, I wouldn't get those yet. And I think that is the first session over.
Sculpting with Shona.
Thank you, and stay with us. Really excited about next week. See you then.